Welcome to the 61st edition of Make Pro Wrestling Majestic Again. I am Tiger Height.
And I am Peanut Gallery.
And we are going to be covering AEW's and NJPW's Forbidden Door. But first, let's do some heckling from the hard camera. Peanut Gallery, what are we talking about?
Well, based on what I saw tonight, a lot of injuries were happening. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about the injury curse of 2022. And I'm going to go over some of the reasons as to why I believe a lot of these wrestlers are getting injured and what, if anything, can be done to have prevented some of these injuries.
Okay.
So, as everyone is very well aware of, based on tonight's event and based on what's happening at Money in the Bank, there are a ton of people who are, a ton of top stars even, who are out with various sorts of injuries.
Right.
Now, those injuries can range from the mundane injury, where they'll just be out for a little while, to the major injuries where they're taken out for months and months and months. There are some injuries that are towards people who may not be in the main event picture, and then there are bona fide main eventers. There are people in the baby faces or heels. It seems like everyone is just getting injured. I don't know if you've seen it, but it just seems like everybody is getting injured.
Right. You know, this happens every now and then as it relates to wrestling industries.
Yeah, but it's been a couple of years since this has happened.
Like, at this scale.
Yes.
Like it seems like, you know, with the amount of card changes for Forbidden Door, and then I think we had two different... Now, the FTR one might not be... That one might be storyline based.
But then there were also a lot of people with the tape on their shoulders,
right.
on their backs.
The athletic tape.
It seems like people are either they're working through injuries or they're undiagnosed injuries.
Or they're like being strapped on with like an egg until they can kind of get through the pay-per-view cycle, which at least AEW has enough time in between for them to actually rest. So
right, but the point being is that there just seems to be a lot of people who are in sometimes very important positions who just become injured.
Right.
We're going to go over some of the major injuries. Obviously, we all know about our Cody Rhodes. We all know about our Rhea Ripley's. We all know about CM Punk. We all know about Matt Cardona. We all know about, it seems like Adam Cole might be injured as well.
He's definitely hurt.
Just in general, just the amount of huge injuries that have occurred. But maybe some lesser known ones would be people, obviously we know that Edge is also hurt a little bit as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish are both hurt.
What about this one?
That's Rhea Ripley. That's
right.
She kicked herself in the teeth.
Right.
And caused a brain injury.
I'm covering up the injury. Hang on, let me move.
Yeah, Big E is another one who is injured. It just seems like a lot of these, and it really limits rosters in their potentials to create matches.
Right.
And there are a couple of reasons as to why I believe, and really these pictures are just meant to be kind of a placeholder for what.
Right.
I'm not really kind of going through each wrestler and what they're injured with and stuff like that, but I want to go over a couple of reasons as to why I believe these superstars are injured.
Right.
I think that the first and most important reason that we should address is the return of the demand for travel.
Yep.
And I am not just talking about domestic travel within the United States, because we didn't really see that big of an uptick in injuries once we returned to domestic travel.
It was international.
It was the international stuff.
Yep.
That is when people started getting hurt. And also when these promotions started to do more cross-promotional stuff, as we have seen with people like Matt Cardona, for example. I think that the schedules being so packed in, the schedules being so
people want everybody because everything was shut down because of the pandemic.
Right.
There's
demand for these superstars to appear at certain shows.
And these superstars need to make that money, and also they want to make sure that they keep that they need to keep their allure, but at the end of the day, what is the risk for these? Like with Matt Cardona, he's wrestling in, 4 or 5 different promotions. He's holding multiple champions, and now he's hurt with a huge bicep injury.
See, I think that's a good example as to what happens when the demand all of a sudden comes back for certain superstars, and they want to perform multiple nights a week at certain shows in certain cities. I think that sort of travel schedule, that sort of tightness, really put a hamper on this potential of these superstars to keep themselves healthy.
Right.
Even when things opened back up, they were only doing 1, maybe 2 shows a week, and they were doing it in the same sorts of, in the same cities and stuff, within that week. So they were only traveling maybe once a week. Now it seems like they're traveling 4, 5, 6 times a week.
Right. And, as soon as we don't have a pay-per-view to cover and doing heckling and stuff, one of the big proprietors, and actually I think would eliminate a lot of these injuries, is seasonal wrestling.
Right. And I think that we've discussed it briefly in the past.
I think we need to do a long form show about something like that.
We need to revisit,
because actually I'm actually a big proprietor now with Rick. Now this injury is kind of different.
And I actually think and going off of that, I do think, and we're going to talk more about other reasons why people are getting injured as well. But I think I think we discussed that when we had the Pro Wrestling Zone about doing a sort of seasonal system. But I think it's worth revisiting now that the current climate's the way that it is. Another reason why I think that a lot of people are getting injured is because they have the expectation that they want to perform at a higher level.
Right.
And I think that, again, this is one of those symptoms.
I don't think it's performers. I think it's the fans.
I think it goes both ways, though. I think the fans expect more, and I think that the performers want to give more.
Right.
Now, let's put this into perspective. During the pandemic era, when there were no fans in the crowds, the WWE was able to cater and promote superstars in a certain way in order to make them look the best. Just just with camera angles and stuff like that. And there was no one there to really kind of say yes or no to it, right? Now with the fans there, I think there's a lot more scrutiny. There's a lot more expectation. I don't think that the superstars are able to provide at the level that they are being able to provide.
I agree with you on that, actually.
Yeah. And I think another thing too, and I think this goes back to the travel thing, is that the access that they have to facilities, to doctors.
I think it still might be somewhat limited.
I think that on the road it's always going to be a limitation, but at least if you're not traveling, you're able to take the time in order to make yourself be the healthiest, fittest, best sort of person that you can be.
But now there was always like a certain criterion where injuries happen.
Yes.
Like it does happen actually at least once a year within the wrestling industry. We're just kind of in the middle of that right now.
Yeah. But this doesn't happen once every single year. This happens once every. The injuries to this scale. I don't think I've seen injuries to this scale since maybe early to mid 2020 when the pandemic first struck, when they had to make so many changes to these cards. Like this is probably a cycle that happens every 2 to 3 years. Maybe not
to this level, but there's always a time when, at least within WWE, there are at least 3 to 4 very high profile, very serious injuries. It always happens.
Well, I know that happens in his.
Also, keep in mind that right before we really started to get into the online community and being really truly exposed to a ton of other promotions, that we did not see those injuries. And now, since we're starting to get more seasoned to them, especially with coming back from the pandemic, we're starting to see more of those injuries. So it seems like it's a lot bigger. But in reality, I don't think it is.
I think it is. This is a cycle that happens every 2 to 3 years in every major promotion. AEW's having their first issues right now. Like, they have never had an injury list so large up into today,
and so high profile. You know, like you said, you had CM Punk with the broken foot. You've got
pretty much every single member of the Undisputed Elite. You have
literally no. I think every single one is injured in some way, shape, or form. Bobby Fish is out.
You have people with multiple tag teams that are out, and Impact and not Impact. AEW is going through its first cycle.
I think Impact is being spared right now.
Yeah,
as it relates to the injuries.
Impact is doing better, but I know that there was a point in time when Impact, I think it was in 2021, when they had a slate of injuries.
Yep.
But again, I think every single promotion kind of goes through the cycle of just having these injuries. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that they're on the road.
Right.
And that they don't have access to the facilities that
they're not used to taking care of themselves on the road. Yeah, it's growing pains. It happens.
It does.
It's almost like you not having a job. Right. And then you all of a sudden getting a job where you have to leave your house. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be the growing pains of, I'm going to be late. How's traffic looking? How's this looking? If you're not equipped for that, because it just kind of happened.
Right.
So it was hard to predict to get back on the road. So they were just kind of thrown in there, and these companies were like, oh shit, we need to start getting these people back in now.
Right, so, back in road shape.
Not just back in road shape, but back in our multi-state tours to make the most money.
Back in road shape.
I thought you were talking about like the wrestlers, not the promotions.
I mean, it goes every single way. The promotions weren't ready, and the wrestlers weren't ready to get back on the road.
Right. They just kind of hit you out of nowhere. But it's not like this was unprecedented or anything.
No,
whatever.
Again, this just happens. And some potential solutions. I think that some of those potential solutions would just be more comprehensive wellness and health checks. That is actually going to come up very soon.
But here's the other thing. Wrestlers also have a responsibility to have the forward planning on having that kind of stuff. Now, freak accidents can happen, but I think there's always still some fail-safes.
Well, yeah.
I think you need to know the limitations of your body. There's a limitation of a mindset and a skill set to where you need to realize, give me some more time.
Well, right, but the promotion also has a responsibility to make sure that you're healthy too.
It's an equal thing. When you're an independent contractor, I think you're more responsible for your general well-being than the promotions that you're working for.
But the promotions, especially with a promotion like WWE, where you don't have those freedoms.
I'm talking. Right. That's different.
The promotion has a responsibility to their wrestlers to make sure that the wrestlers are given all the options available to them.
Those wrestlers are exclusive to that company. But let's talk about a great example is Matt Cardona, who had 5 or 6 world champions wrestling all over the place, doing well, and then all of a sudden this happens. I think it was more so of doing too much too fast. Mm-hmm. And then this happens, and it totally throws off a lot of different promotions. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily his fault, but it's not necessarily their fault. There's a responsibility share to the health and safety of the wrestler. Mm-hmm. With that, it's like, you're 4 world champions in, I'm not going to call you. Right. But then there's also the responsibility of that 1099 worker saying, I'm already booked through the rest of this month and the next 3 months. Why am I taking on another promotion?
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So it's an equal opportunity responsibility to make sure that not only are the workers that are going into your company are safe, because the promotions are only responsible from when they actually go into the ring. That's the only time when they're responsible.
Yeah.
It's up to the wrestler to know the limitations on how many things they can do to promote it.
Right.
And Matt Cardona, I think, is a good example. I think he was just excited to get back in the ring, and he did too much too soon. I'm not faulting him. I'm just saying that there is that responsibility.
And, I think, too, that fan and wrestler promoter expectations are a little too high as well.
I think so too.
I think that we need to get back to a level of wrestling where it is safe for everybody, because I I'm sorry, I can't see Jon Moxley bleed his head to death every single time he gets in the ring.
And then he goes into a place like GCW because he's their world champion.
Right, and then he's in death matches. It's like, hello, what if he gets injured tomorrow in a death match?
And he just came back. He might end up like fucking Jeff Hardy again. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that. I think if he continues at the path that he's going with all of this shit, I would not be surprised if he ended up like Jeff Hardy again.
That's just an example of what wrestling has become.
Now, this is a good example too. Jeff and Matt Hardy, they weren't wrestling. Now they were wrestling in AAA. They had a match at AAA, and then Jeff and Matt Hardy were doing some of the smaller indie promotions, and we saw them promoted all the time.
And they were,
and Jeff Hardy's expectations were so high that he was,
and the fans' expectations of Jeff Hardy to be able to perform
at a
ladder, 2008 level,
ladder hell,
right, was so high
that he had to self-medicate somehow.
Yeah. And I think that the wrestling culture needs to get back to a pre-pandemic sort of expectation.
And I predicted this. I 100% said, here's the thing. It's like, oh, well, what about Darby Allin? Darby Allin wrestles in one promotion.
Right.
He does not take bookings in GCW. He does not take bookings in other places because he would have promoted it.
Right.
He only takes bookings in one place.
Yeah.
Even though Darby Allin is a psychopath and he's going to be crippled by 35, he's only doing that in one promotion.
So I think that there just needs to be a shift.
There is an equal responsibility from a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's up to the wrestler.
Yeah.
So if you want longevity in the ring, eat right, stay away from drugs and, excess alcohol. It doesn't hurt to have a beer or two after like a match, but don't go crazy. But also, diet.
Let's not give people health advice while we're on air here. But
it's still it's responsible. It's responsible, easy stuff.
Wrestlers need to be held accountable for the work that they put in at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, they are the only ones
Promotions have a responsibility to ensure the health and safety of their wrestlers.
And they try to do their best.
And fans need to lower their expectations if they expect longevity. I don't want to see a lot more death matches because it does not help the lifespan of any wrestler.
The only time when a death match is fine is within a promotion because it's easier to control a promotion booking Jeff Hardy for 5 death matches and then Jeff Hardy accepting 5 death matches.
Right.
So it's like, hey, GCW, for instance, has the ability to diversify certain matches to certain people at certain times, where wrestlers may want to take that booking, but GCW at that point has to have that responsibility saying, I know that he just had a brutal ass match. What's the rest of your schedule look like? What was it the last week and a half?
Right.
Like that's the kind of stuff that you kind of have to keep. It's a balancing act of like 3 important factors.
Right.
Is the promotion, the wrestler, and the fans. Who do you blame more? Because each of them have a definite responsibility.
Yeah, they all do. And I think it just came off of what we experienced in the pandemic.
Yep.
And we're still feeling the after effects of it right now.
Yep. I think we're probably gonna have at least another couple of months, maybe 6 months, 7 months of injuries coming out, but we need to kind of cool it down. We get it. We're excited. I mean, Peanut Gallery and I, we love going to our wrestling shows. Trust me. But there just has to be that balance.
Yeah.
And he and
real life is not what you see on television.
Exactly. We were spoiled with pandemic wrestling. We were. And there was that expectation, and they're trying to meet that now, but expectation is going to break, and what is it going to take? I'm sorry, I don't want to see a wrestler legitimately die in the ring to cope with that.
Right.
I would rather see a wrestler out 5-6 months than a person paralyzed.
Right.
because of that expectation.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Exactly. So, anyways, when we come back, what are we going to be talking about?
So, because this was a multi-brand event, Forbidden Door, I want to talk about other ones and the significance of those as well.